All right, welcome back to another Purpose Served podcast episode. I'm here with my man Ev, man. Evan, say what's up, man.
How's it going? How's it going? What's going on? It's Ev, aka Ev Nasty, aka Ev Lamore, aka Mr. Smack Your Favorite Rapper. You know, something like people.
So we literally were just talking about how you're in multimedia, and I was just got really curious about that, and I want to know what you mean by like multimedia and what multimedia actually is for those of people that don't know, like including myself.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just short background on me. I graduated from Wesley College with my bachelor's in multimedia communication and a minor in Africana studies. And the multimedia program was really it was centered on journalism because the head of the program was a journalist himself back in the day. But it wasn't just about being a reporter because these days in the journalism or multimedia game, you have to kind of have the whole package. You can't just be a beat reporter or a photographer or a videographer. You have to be able to do everything to even get your foot in the door these days because just the way the field is going, that's just the trend. So they taught us how to code a little bit, web design, photography, videography, writing stories, doing interviews,
So
how to actually.
the program that you was in when you was in college at Wesley,
Mhm.
you had to learn all of this. These was part of the courses.
Yeah, yeah, this was part of the course load.
That's actually intense. That seemed like it's like it can stretch you thin, especially doing all of that at once, man.
It definitely, listen, man, anybody that knew me when I was at Wesley knows that I was at any given point, I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off because there was points where I was, taking 18 credits of that course load and I was president of the Black Student Union. I was running track. I was an RA. I was in a bunch of different organizations. Speak, the spoken word and performance arts group that was started by my man Kev. Shout out to Spoken by KJ. Um, just had kind of like now, I have my hands in a little bit of everything. I don't like to sit still. It's kind of like um, a love-hate relationship that I have with my own habits because I stretch myself thin and then I'll end up getting burnt out sometimes. But then when I kind of slow down and minimize what I have my hands in, then I'm restless. Like when I take time off work by like day 3, I'm like,
So
all
you
right,
get
what are we
jittery.
doing? Like I can't
Like
just
I
sit.
got to do something.
Right.
See, for people like that I notice, because I'm like that too. Like you must have a lot of energy. You must have a lot of energy. So it's just like for people like that I notice, and it's a common tendency with myself as well. It's just that you do a lot of things until you run yourself in the mud to the point where you can't do nothing no more, and you need to chill out and get yourself back together to get them
Yeah.
juices start happening again. And you're just like, oh, time to take off. You know what I'm saying? But it's
Yeah.
like I'll be having a conversation with one of my friends, with him too, Steve,
Yep.
where I actually talked about this last night, and I have a theory about that, where it's just like people who have high levels of energy due to the fact that things that like pertain to having high levels of energy, it's harder for it to hold together. And when you at a lower energy level, is it that energy level like disperses. So for example, it's extremely hard to, and I don't know why I do this, I always equate everything to the gym, but it's harder for like a person to go to the gym like 30 days straight
Mm-hmm.
than somebody who just saying that I'm gonna just go for the day, and whatever happens out of that happens. One of them takes way more higher energy level than the other one. So with the stuff that takes higher energy level, the key thing to always keep that energy level together is you have to stay consistent with that behavior, or it's going to disperse and you're going to end up being at square one. So that's just like the hardest thing to maintain. And I know like for you probably built up such a repetition of doing things all the time, go, that
Yeah.
it's second nature to you. So it's just like you able to hold that energy together, man,
Yeah.
quite
Because at
well.
that point, you're not even expelling physical energy as much anymore. I mean, of course you are when you're doing what you're doing, but it's about mental energy and that focus. Because, like you said, it takes a lot of consistency and a lot of discipline to do, to have, so many things going on, or even if it's not so many things, if you're just doing that one thing, like the example you gave, going to the gym consistently, it's hard. Even for people that do it, it's still hard. It doesn't get any easier unless you're just coasting. But if you're pushing yourself constantly, it looks easy from somebody that's not doing it, but getting your foot in the door is the hardest part. But even as you're doing it, it's still hard. It's just that it's easier mentally because you've already calloused your brain to the point where it doesn't phase you as much anymore.
That's the truth, yo. I really, really believe that. And that's why I always I started by saying this from my previous podcast episode, that for people, they always put the destination last and try to make the consistency behavior first. And I always say you should set the destination first. And then after that, had a consistency last. You know what I mean? Because the behavior is the thing that you're looking for. It's not the destination. And most people get it confused. So with the behavior, you have to be consistent with that behavior. You just can't do it once and just think that, you know what I mean, that thing that you're trying to do or get to is going to pop up. You got to turn it into like a lifestyle. And that's where the consistency part is. And that's why I really do believe that that's what people should be ending on, because that's going to maintain the results that they get in. That's going to that's a sure way to always know that you're staying on track towards whatever it is that you're trying to get to.
Yeah, man, I definitely agree with that. I always tell people that when it comes to, shoot, I just lost my train of thought. Keep going, it'll come back to me.
All right, so listen, I'm not even gonna lie, we're about to get sidetracked yet again, because I wanted to ask you, what made you pick Wesley and what made you decide that multimedia was the outlet that you was going to take with the education?
So when I got out of high school, I knew that I wanted to be a music journalist. So I wanted to be someone that was interviewing artists, writing album reviews, doing that kind of thing. Originally I wanted to work for a publication like Complex or maybe Hot 97, more well-established media companies. So that's what I was going for as far as my major. Why I picked Wesley in particular, honestly, it was out of convenience and money, because originally I wanted to go to Temple, but Wesley gave me more money because their track coach wanted me to come there. So that's why I ended up at Wesley. And my plan originally was to transfer after the first semester or the first year, but I just ended up kind of planting my roots there because I got involved with Black Student Union and made a bunch of cool friends there that are, still friends to this day, and just kind of got invested in the campus. And I definitely have a love-hate relationship with Wesley now, because there was a lot of, things wrong with that school and a lot of things that weren't necessarily ideal. But I made some of the best friends and the best memories of my life there. So I always have a fondness for Wesley College, or Del State now, because Del State just bought them out. But
Oh,
we'll
wow,
see if
really?
at least kept, yeah, Del State purchased the whole school. So that deal, as far as I know, should be going through next year. But the details aren't fully public and ironed out yet. So I don't even know if they're going to be able to keep the name, or if it's just going to
Right.
be, Del State but an alternate campus, or what's going to happen there. We don't know.
So when you first started doing multimedia at school, was it something that you were just like, Dad, I picked the right thing, I'm truly happy that I did this? Or was it one of those things where you had to find your identity in it, you know what I mean, while you was doing it?
That's a great question. Honestly, my journey with the media game has been kind of interesting. It's been kind of weird. So
We hear it, man.
when I first got into school, I knew that I wanted to be a music journalist, and I knew that's what I wanted to do for sure. But then as the 4 years or 4.5 years went along, I just kind of got disillusioned with, that as my path, just because, well, at the time I told myself it was because of like I mentioned earlier, the trend of the journalism market is kind of going down. you're seeing less and less, physical publications like magazines and newspapers. Everything's going online now, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but that also means, even more that you have to have that full package of being able to do a little bit of everything, especially with it all being digital now, which I can do. But Wesley, being a small liberal arts college, they didn't necessarily have all the tools to make me feel like I was prepared to enter into that arena, as opposed to going to a bigger, school that's has a heavier focus on that program, like NYU or somewhere like that. Wesley,
Yeah.
I say the media, the multimedia communication majors, we were like the one of the least respected majors on campus, but at the same time, we were the movers and shakers. A lot of the people that were running the student organizations were from my major. The student newspaper that I was a part of and eventually helped run definitely shook the table a lot at that school. And we broke a lot of major stories, exposing a lot of, some of those things that I was talking about as far as corruption with, the upper management of the school and just, shady stuff that was happening behind closed doors. We were
Y'all
able
would
to,
speak about that?
yeah. So there was,
Oh God.
at one point, I think it was my junior year. One of the things that goes into your tuition and your fees is the student activities budget. And that budget is supposed to go directly to the student organizations to do with it whatever they want to do. But at one point, Wesley's upper management was trying to make it so that the upper management controlled that money, and then they would divvy it out to the student orgs as they saw fit. And it wasn't public knowledge because they didn't want the students to know about it until it was already done and the ink was already dry on the deal.
So how
But
did you guys find out?
our um, our professor, the head of the program, somebody slipped the information to him some kind of way, I think, if I remember that correctly. And he told us, and we just got to work with investigating the story, because we couldn't just go off of that one source and, what he was saying. We
Y'all
had
needed
to,
more.
interview people that were in, the cabinet of the school and interview students on their feelings about the matter and interview professors and see if they knew anything. And it was a lot of work. It was a major story. Honestly, we worked the whole semester on that story. And it wasn't like a traditional story where it's just one person working it. Because it was so big, pretty much the whole staff of the student newspaper, the Whetstone, that's what it's called. The whole Whetstone staff was working on this story. And at the end, we had something that was, a big deal and put the student newspaper on the map in a major way. And we ended up getting the change to where they didn't make that deal happen anymore.
Wow. It's just crazy to hear what you're saying because I'm just thinking, like for me, when I was in college, I had a hard time just straight up just like showing up to class. And then you're sitting here, you know what I mean, doing everything under the sun. How are you managed to like do all of that and still stay on top of like your grades and your assignments and like your papers and everything? Like when did you sleep?
I didn't. I literally, there was nights that I slept in the media lab. Like me and a couple other, my friends that were in the program, we would be in there till like 3-4 o'clock in the morning, locked in, working on stories, working on, finals, projects, all different types of stuff, and just getting sleep in where we could. I'm not gonna lie, my grades definitely slipped at certain points. I wasn't failing or anything like that.
Yeah.
But and this is something we can get into later too. I'm the type of person that I'm used to excelling at pretty much everything that I do. Because I, got good grades all through, grade school and high school and all that. And I knew that if I put in, X amount of time or hours to get this said result, it was going to happen regardless of whatever happened. But when I got to college, things changed because it was a lot
Hit with a
more.
reality check, man. It was different.
It was a lot more great. So there was definitely times where I had to skip class just to sleep or just to kind of give myself a mental break. And at first I would beat myself up about it, but then I had to get to the point where I had to put my mental health and my well-being first and recognize that, yes, I'm paying to be here, but I'm paying to be here. So I can, I have the right to, make that decision to, take a day off or, you know, skip a couple days, not a couple days, but a couple classes or whatever,
So was it getting to a point where you was like reaching like a mental breakdown because it was too much going on, like with everything and like your like fatigue and stuff like that?
there was definitely times where it felt like I was getting close to that. I never had like a, complete breakdown,
Oh, like on
almost
some
burnout
Britney
moment come to
Spears, like you know what I'm
point. But
saying?
what'd you say?
I said like on some Britney Spears shaving your head, you know what I'm saying?
Nah,
Losing your
nothing like
mind.
that. But there was definitely times where I just had to kind of like go in my room, shut the lights off, sit in the corner in the fetal position, and just like chill out under the covers. Nobody. Like my friends know, like if they can't reach me or they couldn't reach me back then, or to keep it about, there's times even now where I have those moments where I have to just kind of isolate myself. And my peoples know if they're trying to reach me and I'm not hitting back, it's probably one of those moments, or I'm just busy doing one of the things that I have on my plate. Um,
It's
but
so important, man, for people to just take time out for themselves, yo, and
yeah,
just gather themselves.
yeah,
Because when you a lot of people can lose sight of themselves from living this life and all the obligations that they have, even somewhat like even some distractions and everything. It makes you literally lose sight of yourself. And then once you realize that you're that person that's still there, like you know what I mean, a lot of things can hit you at once, but self-care is like to me is like the most important thing because I feel as though if you're not able to take care of yourself, you're not able to take care of nobody. So you have to always make sure you're right before you help anybody else out, man. It's like it's only right. If not,
and
you're gonna
that
run yourself into
that is the
a corner.
realization I had to come to, man. That the things that I had going on and the people that were dependent on me and the people that I wanted to help, I won't be able to take care of any of those things if I wasn't right. And that actually, now I remember, because we definitely went off on a tangent, but that actually reminds me how we got to that point. You were talking about, or you were asking, about my journey with the media field. And, as I went through college and I saw, how the money really wasn't in journalism like that anymore, unless you were at like the upper echelon level, like a Charlemagne or a Ebro or, Rob Markman or somebody like that.
Yeah,
Unless you were at that level or like Scotty Beam or somebody like that, then you wasn't going to be making any real money. And those people had to grind for years to get to the point where they're at. And it was a lot different back then because, the game wasn't as, media focused, as digital focused. But me looking at that and knowing, my situation with my family and the people that were dependent on me, I just, made the decision to get out of the media field at one point because I felt like I told myself I wasn't going to make enough money to support my family and do what I wanted to do and live the lifestyle that I wanted to live. But that part was valid, but also it was more about me and my self-worth and me feeling like I wasn't good enough to get to that upper echelon level. And
because
now,
the one thing that I don't mean to cut you off that I was gonna bring up is
no, this is
just
your
that
show. Go ahead.
but it's just that's like I talk about this all the time too, but it's just like when you accept like a limited belief in yourself and you really hold on to that, man, it could hold you back from doing a lot of the things that you truly want to do. And the one thing that I want to teach people is just how to like freely think, because what happens with a lot of people is just that they carry that personal legend or that dream that they have with them for such a long time. And the older that they get, you got more and more people telling you why it won't work. And then after that, you just start to think like, yo, this probably won't work. I'm probably wasting my time. You know what I mean? Why am I even still doing this? And that's the scary thing about life, yo. For real. It's just like you don't know if something is going to work a lot or not, like no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the cool part as well, because you can literally be the deciding factor on that happening. You know what I mean? It's just all in your belief system. You feel me? And it's
Yep.
just like a lot of us accept like a lot of limited beliefs that we truly don't have to accept. You know what I'm saying? And I know like for you, you probably reached the moment where you're just like, I could actually do this. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not counting myself out too early.
Literally 2021 was my year of that moment that you just described, because you know when the world shut down and we were kind of forced to slow down, um I call it slow down to speed up, because me slowing down, it allowed me to take inventory of all of these things and realize, why am I not in my field that I went to school for? Why am I not doing what I want to do? Why am I not having the successes that I want to have? And I had to realize that, while the things that I internalized and the, excuses that I gave myself, they were valid to a certain point, but not valid enough to keep me from going where I wanted to go. And it all came down to my self image and my belief in myself to be able to get there. And me being scared of being stuck in that grind zone for the rest of my life and wasting time and not ever getting to that upper echelon. But I had to realize that, for one, I had to realize the God that I serve and realize that He didn't give me the dreams that I have and the things that I wanted to do. He didn't give them to me for nothing. And it all goes back to living in my purpose, because He puts certain, desires in your heart and certain goals in your mind, because that's what your purpose is and that's what you're supposed to be doing. And excuse me, I told myself that at one point I told myself that my purpose was just helping people. So, and I told myself that that could take a variety of different forms, which is true. So I got into the banking field because I figured, it'll be beneficial for me because I'll be learning about how money works and, learn things that they don't teach you in school, that you wouldn't otherwise have access to this information unless you're in the banking field,
Right.
which is true. So I'll definitely always be grateful for my experience in banking for that. And, it's stable money and helping people with their finances. If you can do that, you can really change the trajectory of somebody's life, which I've definitely been blessed to do. And I'm still in the banking field currently, but now I know that it's just a placeholder or a means to an end to help fund the dream. And it's not the ultimate destination, because I had to have a conversation with one of those good friends that I made at Wesley, one of my best friends, Shaylin, and she broke it down to me that your purpose is never for other people. Your purpose is always going to be about helping others, because that's, what God designed your purpose for. But to say that it's just helping people and stop there, you're selling yourself short, you're selling God short, and it's a cop out. So you need to go deeper and really examine over the whole span of your life what your interests are that have persisted through your whole life, what you're passionate about and what you love doing, because all those things tie into what your purpose ultimately is. And I'm always going to be thankful for for her friendship and for that. And I always tell people, if you have real friends like that that tell you what you need to hear, not necessarily what you want to hear, definitely keep those people around, because those conversations might not always be fun, but they're definitely necessary to your growth.
Man, I compare that to like pretty much like you need to it's just like you need to have somebody that's going to fully hold you accountable for
Yes.
who you are. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because that falls in line with what you do.
Yep.
And right now, like I'm pretty much like transforming like the close friends that I have around me into that. So for example, they doing what they truly are destined and supposed to do. But not only that, when they see me fall out of line or anything, or just like, getting lazy towards a lot of stuff, it's just like, yo, you need to get back on top of things and grind it out. You know what I'm saying? And ultimately that's like what I'm trying to do for everybody else. Literally what you just said is just that for me personally, and why I even started this whole entire thing, everybody has a purpose. That's the main reason why we're here. And then if you don't know what that purpose is, the very first thing that you should be trying to do is find that. And people don't even realize is just that they came across it already. It was
Yep.
born with it. And now you're just seeing signs of it. But the only problem is just that they don't want to see or they don't want to listen. You know what I mean? Because they
Mhm.
just think, you know, I really, really enjoy that, but how can I get money off of that? How can this? How can that? And then after that, they start hyping themselves up in these situations that's like putting them in a lose-lose. And they won't even go out and try, but they don't understand why their life is like off or why they not happy, even though they got that, that nice job with the 401k and everything, you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
it's just the one thing I am gonna keep saying, like on this podcast, like I would never ever knock anybody who has like a 9 to 5 because they're doing what they got to do. They're providing for their family and everything. But if
Absolutely.
it's getting to the point where, you're pretty much like ultimately depressed at what you're doing, and then you're coming home and you're not happy every day. And for the next 20 years of your life, you're living for Saturday and Sunday. That's a crazy life to live, yo.
Yeah.
Instead of just putting yourself out there, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And who knows how long it's going to take until, that moment comes. But people don't even realize it's just that a lot of times when they don't reach that point that they're trying to reach, it's because something is missing that you must learn. It's not about failing or anything, but these challenges they keep helping you grow towards that person so you can keep developing these traits. You know what I mean? Like, everybody want to go to the NBA, but they don't put in NBA work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man. It all comes down to that work ethic and what you said earlier, that courage of being able to put yourself through that and do that work to get to where you want to get to. Because if you want to have what other people don't have, you have to do what other people aren't willing to do. Like I know I mentioned earlier, I was scared of being in that grind zone, for the rest of my life and not ever reaching, that pinnacle of where I wanted to be. But how would I ever know if I was able to get to that destination if I didn't put myself out there, put both feet in, and actually start doing the work? Because for all I know, I could be in that grind zone for only 2 years and then just something pop, and then all of a sudden, phew, I skyrocket. We see it happen every day. Like, Meg the Stallion, she started off with a freestyle that circulated on Twitter, and now here we are a year later, and she's the biggest artist in the world. So
I
you
didn't even
never
know that. That's
know.
crazy.
Yeah, you never know what can happen when you put yourself out there. You just have to have the courage and, the work ethic to actually do it, and just not, be in tune with yourself enough to know when there's valid reasons to not do something and it's not just fear and you just BSing and, talking yourself out of things. You have to be in tune with yourself and with the creator enough to know the difference.
You know what's crazy, man? Because it's just something, it's a lot of weird things. Like, this is about to be mad weird on what I'm about to say, but it's mad weird what the body can feel, but it's no language to really communicate it. You know what I mean? Like language is cool, like to a certain extent, but
Mm.
there's still like barriers that we can't use words for. You know what I mean? But like, for example, this is what I was gonna say, like people genuinely know. They could feel it. They could feel it in their gut when they know when something's valid or they're just doing it like out of fear. Like they know to the core of them. You know what I mean? And they can't even, like, for example, these are some things you just can't put into words. You just know. You just it's built in you. But like me, I've always been weird, dude. Like mad weird. I'm the type of person that a lot of things I go all in and I don't even have to think twice all about. And that's why, it makes me differ from a lot of people. But oftentimes, especially early on, like for me, I'll say from like 16 up until I was like 22, it was just like go all in. And then after that, it don't work out. But I'm just like, oh, I'm doing it again. I don't care, yo. I'm doing it again. And just keep going and keep going and keep going. But after a while, like mentally, what it like made me do was just I got conditioned to hearing no. You know what I mean? And weirdly enough, no started seeming like an opportunity. You know what I mean? The more I started hearing it, because I'm just like, that ain't the end all be all. Like there's a way to switch that around.
Yeah.
And for a long time I stayed like that and I didn't know what was happening to my mind. But weirdly enough, it was just like my mind started to not process failure. You know what I mean? And another thing that I talk about too is just that when you get into situations, like it's not an easy and it's not a fun thing when you're going towards that thing that you truly love and you dream about that you really want to do. People don't even realize that's like the most scariest feeling that you could possibly get of all time, and that could literally paralyze you. But the to me, the only remedy to that is courage.
Yeah.
Like it's to me, it's borderline impossible to be fearless, yo. There's no way. Like when people throw that word around, ain't nobody fearless. The right word is courage. They're
Yep.
scared, but they don't care. It's not going to
Exactly.
stop them,
You're going
even
for it
if they're
regardless.
going for it regardless. And to a lot of people, that's coming off as fearless. Like, and that's like another thing with me, man. Like when I very first started this podcast, I literally, I was, I was scared. I was nervous. I didn't know if this was going to work out. I don't even know what I was doing. But from doing this, like I'm nowhere near where I want to be. But I'm learning so much, man. Like I even had a hard time just staring into the camera because I was just so camera shy. Like I told you that, man. Like, but
Yeah.
keep when
But
you,
here you are.
yeah, man. Like
Now you
when
got
you,
your own show where you're on camera and you're putting yourself out there in front of, however many people, potentially millions of people. And, yeah, it might be scary, but like you said, you're going for it regardless. And it's this really, great, sorry, I kind of to switch lanes a little bit. You said something earlier about, the no's being opportunities. And that was something that I had to learn too, because I wasn't used to hearing no. I wasn't used to, not achieving things immediately or, getting that win immediately. And it took, some great mentorship. And, one of the things that one of my mentors recommended to me is this book. I can't remember the author off the top of my head, but um, the book's called Go for No. And it outlines everything that you just said about no's being opportunities. And each no that you get is just getting you closer to that yes and closer to that win that you're looking for. And I had to condition my mind to look at each, thing that I was doing or, situation that I was in that was a potential yes or no, look at it as an opportunity for growth and not necessarily focusing so much on the result. Because when you're so results based in your mind, then you're going to end up shooting yourself in the foot and getting to this point where, like you mentioned earlier, you're just paralyzed because you're so fearful of getting another no or having another failure or having another trip fall. But if you look at it as an opportunity for growth, then you'll, lean into that no or lean into that, hurdle and see what you can take from it and get that much better for the next hurdle, and you go over it that much smoother. And then when you get to that ultimate hurdle that is standing between you and your destiny, you're going to be that much more equipped to get over it. And, it's easier said than done, changing your mentality in that way. It's something that, 2021 has definitely taught me how to get better with, especially like this last half of 2021, or excuse me, 2020. Yeah, I'm already thinking about 2021.
oh yeah,
Already trying to get out of this
yeah.
year, man.
You're already in
But,
the future, dog.
but it's something that I definitely, had to learn, really in depth this year, but it's still something that I struggle with on the daily. But the point is, if you're struggling with it, that means you're still fighting and you're still striving. You're not just laying down and letting whatever your obstacle is win and wash over you. You're still struggling against it. And as long as you're still in the fight, then you're on the right track and you're on the path of where you need to be. But it's so many people.
Dude, that's solid, yo.
Yeah. But it's so many people out here that is just scared to fight and scared to go through that struggle. And they'll just settle for that 9 to 5 working for the weekend life, like you talked about earlier. And then they're going to wake up at 65 and wonder why they're so unhappy. And they're really going to be unhappy when that Social Security that they've been working for and that retirement pension that they've been working for isn't around anymore, because the way the economy is going, that's 9 times, or more than likely, that's not going to be a thing. So if you're,
whoa, for real?
Yeah, I mean, if you just look, I'm not a huge, numbers guy, but just knowing what I know and from the mentorship that I've gotten and, the things that I see, if you're dependent on a pension and Social Security and a retirement package when you get 65, one, even if it is there when you get 65, you're going to have a rude awakening when you just are sitting at home and you had nothing to do but collect this little, $1,200 or $2,000 or whatever it is a month. And B, if it's not there, then you're really going to be in trouble, because you're going to have no purpose, nothing going on for you, and you're going to be, unhappy in here and up here, and you're not going to have any money. So either way, it's a bad situation. So why not just go for it now and put yourself out there now while you're young and you have more energy and less to lose.
No,
then,
seriously,
see
man.
where the chips fall and see where you end up, in a few years from now. You never know unless you try, or unless you put yourself out there and actually put in the work.
You know what's crazy? It's like, for example, somebody like being 20 years old, and then after that, they start doing things based off of what other people think. And then after that, 40, 50 years later, they most likely gonna realize, like, yo, them same people probably wasn't thinking about me this whole entire time. Why did I even do this? Why did I even do this for these last 40 years?
Yeah.
What am I doing? But that's a scary thing, man. And I don't blame people who think like that, because like I said earlier, we live in a world in such uncertainty, and especially this year. But this is the one thing that, like, if for y'all listening to me, y'all gonna soon understand that I'm a broken record. I'm gonna say the same thing over and over again, but y'all gonna start to get it. Y'all gonna start to understand. You know what I mean? But you guys need to start doing things for yourself that's going to add value to yourself. Because I'm telling you guys this right now, you doing that is going to add value to the people around you. And my biggest thing with that is just that you should be doing that through your deeds and actions and not your words, because that's showing that you truly mean what you're saying. You know what I mean? Because people can see it without you even saying it. If you got to keep saying it, you know what I mean? That means that people don't really believe what you're doing. You know what I mean? But that's my biggest thing, man. It's just that I would love for people to turn their hobbies that they're truly passionate about into a pursuit of mastery. You know what I mean? Because that's just going to have people just enjoying life. You know what I mean? And that's what they're destined to do. So the benefits that they're going to get from that is going to be outside of what they even thought that they was going to get. And a lot of people just leave that up to chance and stuff like that. Yeah, you have that, but our minds are so powerful, bro. Like, it's ridiculous what it can manifest if you focus it enough. And a lot of people just don't like putting in the work. For one, like I keep saying, is just that because they don't want it to backfire. And two, they truly don't want to do it. You know what I mean? But for those people who really are out there and they're like in search for something, you know what I mean? Just, that's what I'm here for. If you want to listen to me all day, I'll talk you guys up.
Yeah, man. I'm sorry, you said something a second ago that I wanted to come back to.
I said
it'll come back to me.
I think, was it All right, so I did say like about the two things where people uh pretty much just stop themselves, and the other one, what did I say? I don't even know, dude. Oh my god, my memory is shot. I can't even lie to you.
I feel
It's
you.
bad.
But
But another thing that I was going to say is like even that we was talking about for a little bit is just that for a lot of people this year, it either started off really bad and is ending well, or it started well and it's going like absolutely terrible. I'm noticing now more than ever, there's no gray area. Pretty much everything is literally about just like left and right, on and off. Like with pretty much everything. And the one thing that it seemed like we're missing is just like empathy and understanding for the next person. And if it continues like this, it's going to be crazy. You know what I mean? That's why I'm just trying to do my part. So everybody just like, there's no misunderstandings going on.
yeah, man, thank you. You just reminded me of what I wanted to come back to, what you talked about with adding value to other people, because you're right. It's a lot of people that are just out here and with the blinders on, not really looking at, the next man and what they may be going through or what they have going on, and just all in it for themselves. But when you're really striving to add value to other people, and because like I mentioned earlier, living in your purpose is all about, of course you're still going to be doing what you love, but always striving to add value to others. And that's going to have people wanting to pour into you the same way that you're pouring into them. And you might be able to inspire somebody to do the same thing for other people. And then this whole trend that we're seeing now with people just, living selfishly and just kind of disconnected from everybody. We see it worldwide, but especially in America, we're just more disconnected now than ever. And part of that is because of the pandemic, but even before that, I think
Keep it real. What do you think it is? Like social media?
Social media definitely plays a part. Um, I think it's the pandemic, and a lot of it is just American culture as a whole. Is just a very self-centered, selfish culture. Um, not to just totally trash America because I live here, but at the same time, I live here, I was born here. So if anybody gets to critique America and American culture, it should be me. So,
Nah, word, yo. Freedom of
hold on
speech,
one
baby.
hold on one second, because my computer just did something weird. Can you still see me?
I can still see you, dog.
Okay, because I cannot. Okay, I'm back. Now I can see.
All right, good, good.
All right. But yeah, I think a lot of it just has to do with American culture just being a culture of selfishness. Like we see it with the pandemic because people are just being unwilling to take direction to stay home and not, change their habits and really look out for the next man in a real way in terms of looking out for each other's health. People don't even want to do that. So I think the American culture of just, being self-centered definitely has a piece to do with it. But if people like you and me can do our part to, change that culture and shift that mindset, that might be something that can change, maybe for the next generation. So I think what you're doing with this podcast is a beautiful thing, because you don't know how many lives you could impact just with your words and what you're doing. And, you might think that you sound like a broken record, but every time that, you put these positive messages out there, you could be affecting somebody new. And I just think it's a great thing that what you're doing. I think it's awesome.
When I very, very, very first talked to you, when was this? Like 2 months ago. Everybody that's listening, I met Ev like 2 months ago, man. Like through my boy Steve, they went to the same school.
Yep,
But
not to
when,
Steve.
yeah, man. So when I first talked to him, I started to realize and I started to understand, with this mindset, I like, this is somebody that I have to have on the show, because my biggest thing is like what you just said. That's my ultimate goal. from the show is just like I noticed that the direction of the climate, not only in this country but in this world, we need a paradigm shift. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
like in a big way. So I'm just like, I'm trying to pay it forward any way that I can. So to get people, like my biggest thing is that people should be around like-minded people in a like-minded environment. You know what I mean? Because that's going to help that message spread even more. And like, even though everything that you just said, man, like this whole entire podcast is just like, you know what I mean? It wowed me, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Iron sharpens iron, man. Like you can, when you're around like-minded people and y'all are on the same wavelength, like you can feel it. Like it's something that you can feel like throughout your whole body, and just your whole vibe just changes. And it's a beautiful thing. So that's why I try to stay around like-minded people as much as possible. Not only because of, the good, euphoric feeling that comes from it, but when you're around people that aren't like-minded and aren't on that same wave as you and aren't going the same place you're going, that can throw you off course. That's something that I had to realize even with my job, because it's so many people that are living, especially in the banking industry, it's so many people that are living that life that you described earlier of just 9 to 5, strive, just working for the weekend. And that's like their biggest goal is just making it to the weekend and making it to that retirement package. And you don't realize how much, even they may not even have to say things and put things in your ear and in your head necessarily. Of course, when they do, that's harmful too. But even beyond that, just their presence and just knowing that, you don't realize how much
You
people being
absorb,
in your
like,
atmosphere can affect you. And people that, just have negative vibes about them, for lack of a better term. I know vibes is like a kind of overused word in 2020, but for lack of a better term, those negative vibes can affect you in a real, real way. And until you sit down and take inventory of it, you may not even realize, what you need to declutter from your space, whether it be people from work or, people that you think are your friends, but really aren't out to see you win or aren't on the same wave as you. And it's okay to outgrow people too. Like sometimes you're just, people are just seasonal and they're meant to teach you something, and they're not meant to be around you forever because they can drag you down. And I know that sounds harsh to say, but
but
it's
it's the
reality.
truth.
It's reality. So you have
A
to
lot
decide
of
whether that's something you're willing to put up with.
like a lot of things like that. What you're saying is another thing that I always speak on this podcast is like you're very self-aware, so you're able to remove yourself out of a situation and analyze that situation for what it is. And a lot of people can't do that. They'll just be like, feeling weird, but not knowing why they're feeling weird or feeling down out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
But going back with what you said on vibes, man, I'm not even gonna lie. I'm so big on that. It's like not even funny. Like, to
Yeah.
me, like vibrations, man, is just like a big thing because it's real. It's a science, and everything pretty much vibrate at some sort of level. You know what I mean? And people don't even understand that. Like sometimes when they in, like for example, an environment of people that always got something negative to say about something, even though that they're a positive person, they're gonna out of nowhere start saying similar stuff that they're saying. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And next thing you know, they're feeling that same vibe, and then they leaving them, and they're like, "Yo, I feel like sad and depressed for some odd
Yeah.
reason."
You
But
feel gross, like this gray cloud hanging over you.
that
And
melancholy, man.
yeah, yeah, like people just saying things that aren't necessarily like shots at, you or what you're doing, but just negative things in general. When you hear them over and over and you start to internalize them, then you yourself apply it to, your dreams and your goals, and then you end up talking yourself out of it. And that's something that was a real thing for me too, because it's corporate America. It can definitely change you, bro. Like
bro.
I see people that have been in that game a lot longer than me, and just hearing how they talk and their views on life and just their vibes and the way they carry themselves, it's like I know, like, when I think about my goals and I'm focused on, what I'm doing now to get me to where I want to be, I think just as much about where I want to be as much as I do where I don't want to be, because the dream and the nightmare are both valid motivations to get you where you're trying to be. That's something that I had to realize too, especially through, something that a mentor of mine told me a long time ago that really rung true for me in 2020.
I was just talking to my mom the other day, just like a couple days ago, how that people need to get comfortable with that side of them, that nightmare side and that shadow self, because it's very, very prevalent in everybody. And a lot of people don't know how to handle that. And if you know how to handle that and control that energy and use it to your advantage, it can be such a powerful tool, man. Because like if you just like, for example, you go into a situation and just be like, I can't do this, I'm about to fail. And just be like, if I do fail, it is what it is. I'm gonna
Mm.
take that, I'm gonna just go. And if I think I'm a fail already, I might as well go all in since it already means nothing. You know what I mean? But
Yeah,
that's just something that you gotta people understand. You gotta always play mind tricks on yourself. Like you can't use the same motivations every single time because after a while it don't motivate you anymore. You gotta
mm,
always play tricks to your mind. You know what I mean? Because you can't keep feeding it the same stuff. That's like you just like, for example, yeah, pizza's good, but when you eat pizza every single day, that pizza ain't gonna be good no more. You're gonna be like, dog, I don't want this. Give me something else. You know what I
yeah,
mean? But it's just like your brain, just like with food, you gotta eat things in moderation. And that's like with everything. Everything comes in moderation. But
yeah.
especially with your mind, man, you
Give you,
gotta
I'll give you another like kind of a off the beaten path weird example. Like I'm not a morning person at all. So when I'm getting ready for work or whatever I'm doing in the morning, something that was plaguing me a lot is just moving slow and just shaking that tiredness off. So one of the things that I use is music. So I'll put on like a fast-paced, upbeat song to like get me through, and like I'll kind of time myself based off of that. Like, all right, I need to be this at this point in my morning routine by the time this song plays this many times. Or like I'll pick a longer song and I'm like, if I'm not done, with my morning routine by the time I get at this point in the song, or by the time the song is done, then I know I'm in trouble. But I had to realize I can't use the same song every time, because at first, it was going well for me. I was using I don't know, who the Roots are?
yeah, yeah, the group.
So, like 2 or 3 years ago, Black Thought, the rapper from the Roots, he did a freestyle on Funkmaster Flex show that was like 10
Oh
minutes long.
no, y'all, I seen that joint. I
Yeah,
seen that.
that was crazy.
Yeah, that
Black
was
Thought is
crazy.
one of my favorite rappers of all time, and that's probably my favorite. If we're talking about just a straight verse, that's probably my favorite verse of all time, just in the history of rap. But
Oh,
it's a 10-minute verse, so I would use that in the morning. But then it got to a point where I was, slowing down and focusing more on the words, or just kind of got too accustomed to that song. So I had to switch it up and, start playing, Kendrick Lamar, Rigor Mortis, or, just find a different song.
that's another
And
crazy one.
it's just a mind trick that I had to play on myself. So what you just said about playing mind games with yourself to, get things done is definitely valid. It might feel weird in the beginning, but for one, it's in your head. So it's not like you're going to be embarrassing yourself in front of other people, because it's just you.
It's
So
just you.
do whatever you have to do to make things happen. Do that. And don't feel any qualms or feel weird about it, because at the end of the day, you're still getting the result and you're still getting it done.
Man, like I got four brothers and two sisters, and I'm the oldest. So for the longest time, I'm like, that's my motivation. Still to this day, I got an alarm clock that goes off every single day with their names in order from like oldest to least at like 6 o'clock. At 6 o'clock in the morning. And at first that was my motivation for doing everything. But like I said, it starts to get mundane and it starts to turn into like more routine, like instead of putting that fire, like, yeah, I can't do that for like 3-4 months straight every day. And like, yeah, this is the reason why I'm getting up. Yeah. Now my brain already knows that. Now I'm just like, yeah, what else? You get what I'm saying?
It doesn't trigger you anymore. It's
It
not
don't.
like a like boom, like thing that like flashes in your mind anymore because your brain is just so used to seeing it. It's like you said, it's mundane, it's routine. It's just something in the background now. So you
So
have
it's
to
just like
switch it up.
I psych myself up pretty much, like, I'm not even gonna lie, like every day, man, because like even just waking up to me, man, first off, people don't even understand how much that's a blessing, even in this time and age, like like wake up every morning.
Yeah.
But not only that, it's just like every day's presenting new challenges, like, so it's just a lot of times I'm in this day, you know what I mean? And then after that, tomorrow's gonna come. But today I'm here. Like, you know what I mean? And that just like that always psychs me up. That will always motivate me because I'm looking at different aspects of whatever day that I don't honestly like. I got tomorrow loosely planned out, but when I wake up tomorrow, I already know I gotta go based off of the vibe. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Just go tactically from there. You know what I'm saying? But for the most part, every day in a weird way, I just psych myself up to motivate myself. Like, you know what I mean? But another thing that I was gonna say, which is a problem with a lot of people, is just that a lot of times, like for me, I'm trying to inspire people and not motivate people. Motivation literally only lasts but so long. But when you're inspired by something, it moves you in a different way to really, really act on it because it's to the core to you and not something that made you feel good. You know what I mean? There's a difference between something that make you feel good and something that's like that lights a fire in you. Like, you
Yep.
know what I mean? That really resonates with you. It's two
Yeah.
different things when something resonate and when it feel good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
There's things that can like feel good in the like in the moment to hear, and you're just like, yeah, you feel fired up in that moment, and then you wake up the next morning and you're just like, back to business as usual. But when you have something, when you have something that really shifts your whole mindset and just your views on life, those are the things that your mind is going to come back to when you have those moments where you're in the trenches and it may not be easy and things aren't going your way and it looks like, you might need to just give up. But when you come back to those things that weren't necessarily motivation, but they just are the things that they become your principles, and become the pillars that you stand on while you're out there grinding. Those are the things that are really going to push you forward.
yo, that was a really, really good one, man. So we reached the end of the episode, man. So for those that's listening, tell them where they can find you at, man.
So you can follow me at Ev_Lemoor. That's EV_LEMOOR. That's on Twitter and Instagram. I'm going to be having a lot of things cooking soon. I have a YouTube channel coming soon for my music review, because just getting back to living in my purpose, man, I realized that working for a publication or Hot 97 or a Complex or something like that, I was right. The money wasn't in that. The money is in moving myself forward and being all in for myself and not for another company and moving another, name forward, moving my own brand forward. So I'm going to have a YouTube coming real soon for my music reviews. And I'm going to have a few different podcast ideas that I've got cooking. One with my good friend that I mentioned earlier, Shaylin Bivens, and some other things that I got, cooking up here. I don't want to speak on too much yet because, I don't have things, copyrighted and trademarked yet. But just man, everything's gonna be on my social media, so just stay tuned.
Yo, man, I just want to personally tell you, I really, really appreciate you coming on the show. I really appreciate you giving out the insight, man. And for everybody that's listening or even watching, I'm gonna put all this information in the description down below. And thank you yet again for being on this episode.
Thank you for having me, man. This was great. This was a great talk. Like I said earlier, what you're doing is really it's really going to change people's lives in a real way. And it, in ways that you may not even realize. Like just this conversation, it's impacted me more than you even think. I'm gonna take a lot of nuggets from this conversation. Thank you for having me. And anytime you want to have me back, just know I'm open. Just hit my phone and we'll make it happen.
Oh no, seriously, we're gonna have you on the show like really, really soon. And for everybody out there, serve your purpose. Eb is for sure doing his. I appreciate you all, and I love you. Have a
All
good
right.
night.
Yes, sir.